Mason Reed, a weathered 45-year-old cowboy, rode his old horse Thunder through the rolling Texas hills, checking the fence line of Double Bar Ranch under the pale morning sun. For over a decade, this had been his routine, mending wire, inspecting posts, and keeping his grief buried deep. 10 years ago, a house fire claimed his wife, Emily, and their infant son, leaving Mason a solitary man with kind eyes shadowed by loss. The other ranch hands respected his quiet strength but kept their distance, sensing the walls he'd built around his heart. As Mason rode along Miller's Creek that morning, something caught his eye, a burlap sack floating in the slow-moving water. At first, he dismissed it as trash, common debris washed down from upstream. But the sack moved oddly, bobbing against the current. Curious, he dismounted and waded into the shallow creek. The sack was heavy, tied shut with coarse rope. As he lifted it, a faint sound froze his blood. A weak whimper, barely louder than the gurgling water. His hands trembled as he untied the rope, revealing a sight that would haunt him forever, a baby girl, no more than 8 months old, with matted blonde hair and blue-tinged lips. She was ice-cold, barely breathing, but her eyes fluttered open, and a tiny whisper escaped, "Mama." Mason stood paralyzed, the memory of his own son's cries from a decade ago flooding back. But this time, he could act. Wrapping the baby in his coat, he mounted Thunder and rode harder than ever before, pressing the child to his chest to share his warmth. Her breathing grew shallower, her tiny fingers clutching his shirt. "Hold on, little one," he whispered, spurring Thunder toward town. The baby's eyes, too wise for her age, met his, and he vowed she would live. Mason raced to Dr. Michael Stone's office on Main Street, ignoring the stares of townsfolk as he galloped through. Dr. Stone, a seasoned physician with a reputation for skill with children, looked up from his coffee as Mason burst in, clutching the bundle. "Doc, she's barely breathing," Mason gasped. "Found her in the creek, tied in a sack." Dr. Stone's face paled as he saw the hypothermic child. "On the table, now," he ordered, his calm replaced by urgency. Mason laid her down gently, smoothing her hair as she whimpered. For the next hour, Dr. Stone worked tirelessly, wrapping her in heated blankets, checking her vitals, and monitoring for injuries. Mason paced, unable to leave, his heart pounding with fear and hope. Grace Harper, a 35-year-old schoolteacher, arrived at the office by chance, drawn by the commotion. 5 years earlier, she'd lost her husband in a mining accident and her 6-month-old daughter to fever. The sight of the tiny girl on the table stopped her cold, stirring memories she tried to bury. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Someone threw her in the creek," Mason said, his voice thick with anger. "Left her to die." Dr. Stone, stabilizing the baby's temperature, turned to Grace. "She needs round-the-clock care, feedings every 2 hours, warmth, monitoring for pneumonia. I can't do it alone, and Mason's no nurse. Will you help?" Grace hesitated, fear of heartbreak warring with the pull of the child's gaze. But when the baby's eyes met hers, something shifted. "I'll help," she whispered, stepping forward despite herself. When Dr. Stone placed the baby in her arms, the child calmed instantly, her tiny hand gripping Grace's finger. Grace hummed a lullaby, and the baby smiled, a faint, fleeting curve of her lips that brought tears to Mason's eyes. Over the next 3 days, Mason and Grace cared for the child, whom Grace named Hope for her resilience. Mason learned to change diapers, his calloused hands gentle, while Grace taught him to test formula temperature. They spoke little at first, both wary of attachment, but Hope's growing strength drew them closer. On the second night, Grace shared her loss. "I had a daughter. She'd be 5 now." Mason nodded. "I lost a son. House fire, 10 years ago. Thought I'd never care again, but this one, she's different." Hope thrived, her babbles turning to "Mama" for Grace and "Papa" for Mason. Dr. Stone marveled at her recovery. "She knows she's loved," he said. But their fragile peace shattered when Sheriff Williams arrived with grim news. someone's asking about a missing baby. Offering a $1,000 reward. Whoever left her wants her back. The sheriff revealed that Mayor Richard Thornton's assistant had inquired about a family matter. Thornton, the town's wealthiest man, owned half its businesses and wielded unmatched influence. Suspicion fell on him, and whispers of scandal spread. Maria Gonzalez, Thornton's housemaid, confirmed the worst to Grace at the schoolhouse. "The baby is Miss Rebecca's," Maria confessed, tears streaming. "The mayor's daughter. They said she died at birth to hide the shame of an unwed mother. He paid a man to dispose of her." Grace clutched hope, horrified. "They're not taking her," she vowed. Mason agreed, "over my dead body." But Thornton's power loomed large, and their love for Hope felt like a fragile shield. When Mayor Thornton arrived at Dr. Stone's office in his opulent carriage, his silver hair and cold eyes radiated authority. With him was Rebecca, his 19-year-old daughter, pale and trembling. "You have something that belongs to my family," Thornton declared, eyeing Hope in Grace's arms. "She belongs to the people who saved her," Mason shot back, stepping protectively forward. Hope, sensing the tension, buried her face in Grace's shoulder, whimpering. Rebecca, tears in her eyes, asked to hold her daughter. But when Grace tried to pass Hope over, the baby wailed, reaching frantically for Grace and crying, "Mama." Rebecca's face crumpled. "She doesn't know me," she whispered, turning to her father. "You told me she died. You lied." Thornton's jaw tightened. "I did what was best. She'll come home with us, where she belongs." He produced a legal document, claiming a custody hearing in 3 days. As they left, Rebecca whispered to Hope, "I love you," but the baby clung to Grace. That night, Grace tucked Hope into her crib, the baby unusually clingy. As she sang a lullaby, Grace whispered a secret to Mason, "I know something about Thornton. Rebecca came to me 2 years ago, bruised and scared. He'd hit her, controlled her life. She was terrified to speak out." The custody hearing packed the courthouse. Judge Parker, a fair man in his 60s, faced Thornton's slick Dallas lawyer, who argued for family rights and the child's proper upbringing. Mason's lawyer, Tom Bradley, countered, "This child was abandoned, left to die. Mason and Grace saved her, loved her. She calls them Mama and Papa." Rebecca's testimony was heartbreaking. "I thought she died," she sobbed. "I grieved for Emma, my daughter. I want to be her mother now." But under cross-examination, she admitted Hope rejected her touch, crying for Grace. Mason spoke next, his voice steady but emotional. "I lost my son 10 years ago. Thought I'd never heal. Then I found Hope, fighting to live. She's brought me back. Love doesn't need papers." Grace's testimony was a turning point. She spoke of her own loss, Hope's recovery, and then revealed Thornton's abuse. "Rebecca came to me, bruised, scared of her father. He hit her when she told him about the baby. Called her a disgrace." The courtroom gasped. Rebecca nodded, confirming the truth. As recess ended, Hope took her first wobbly steps from Grace to Mason, calling, "Papa." The crowd melted. Judge Parker's ruling was clear, Hope belongs with Mason and Grace. She's chosen them, and they've proven their love. Thornton's protests were drowned by cheers. Rebecca, relieved, asked to say goodbye. "I love you, Emma," she whispered, accepting Hope's new family. She asked to visit, and Grace agreed, "You'll always be welcome." 6 months later, Mason and Grace married in a joyful ceremony, with Hope as their flower girl. Rebecca, now Aunt Rebecca, attended, smiling. Hope grew into a confident child, knowing her story and her chosen parents. The man who abandoned her, Carl Jenkins, was arrested, haunted by his crime. On Hope's 5th birthday, surrounded by her family in town, she declared, "I don't need wishes. I have Mama, Papa, and all of you." Every night, as Grace tucked her in, Hope asked for the story of how they found her. And as she drifted to sleep, she knew she was home, loved by a family forged not by blood, but by an unbreakable bond.